Hello, my name is Audra McDonald, and this is my life in the theater. I'm very nervous because I'm. Okay, yes, The Secret Garden. So this is the show where I made my Broadway debut, and I played the Aya. But the interesting thing about this is when I auditioned for The Secret Garden, I was auditioning to do the Broadway replacement of the Aya, but they were also rehearsing the national tour. And the woman who had been cast in the tour, they were already in rehearsal, and I just came into audition at 890 Broadway, when that used to be the place everybody would rehearse. And I ended up auditioning on their lunch break, and we found out later when I got cast, they said, would you be willing to go on the road? Because actually the woman who is playing the Aya on the road just had a baby and would really like to stay home if she could. So when I thought I was going to make my Broadway debut, I ended up going out on the road with The Secret Garden, and then I did the road for a while, and then when I came back home, they said, okay, now would you like to go to Broadway? And so I did. And I had a great time with this cast, on the road. It was Anne Ranulfson and Douglas Sills and Kevin McGuire. And then when I did it on Broadway, Rebecca Luker. I remember doing the my put-in before my first show on Broadway. And we were doing Coming a Terrible Storm, looks like a da-da-da-da. And as soon as we finished, Rebecca turned around and said, I want to meet this voice. Who is this? And I was like, Rebecca Luker's talking to me. But I was still in Juilliard at the time. And so a lot of the cast came to my final recital at Juilliard to graduate. So they all came to my graduation recital. And it was just an incredible experience and a great way to make a Broadway debut. And I got to, my Hindu was pretty good. Okay, so that's The Secret Garden. Okay, so Carousel. So after I did Secret Garden on Broadway, I went back out on the road with The Secret Garden. And while I was on the road, I got a call from my new agents to come in and audition for Carousel. And so I did, and that ended up being one of like 4 or 5, maybe even 6 times that I had to come back and do it. Actually, in my first audition, I ended up meeting Michael John LaChiusa as well, because I was auditioning at Lincoln Center, and they ended up saying, can you step back outside? And then they said, we want you to come back in again. And so when I came back in again, Graziella Danielle and Michael John LaChiusa were sitting there. And they said, okay, we want you to sing again for them. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I did. And then they had me come back in a couple of weeks later and do a callback for Hello Again, even though I was auditioning for Carousel. And then they decided I was too young for Hello Again. I was 23 at the time. And so I ended up doing a few more callbacks and got the role of Carrie Pipridge, and fainted at my final callback. Yes, I did. Fainted dead away after singing Mr. Snow. I got to the last part, I remember, and then I just decided that now's a good time to be unconscious. So, but they cast me anyway, so that's good. And I just have such beautiful memories of this show, the incredible cast. Michael Hayden, who I'd gone to school with at Juilliard, Sally Murphy, the late, great Shirley Verrett, and of course, all headed by Nicholas Heitner. And being at Lincoln Center, I remember our Sitzprobe that we did in the lobby of Lincoln Center Theater, the Vivian Beaumont, and it was snowing outside. And we had the huge orchestra, and we were facing the windows, and we could see the snow falling as we were hearing this incredible score. And it was just, I could feel the magic. And also knowing that I was right across the street from the school that I had just been at for 5 years and struggled while I was at Juilliard. So it all kind of felt right in a beautiful way. Another really special memory I have about this show is I ended up meeting my best friend, Lavette George, who was an incredible Broadway actress and singer who passed away. Actually, I think, she passed away in 2006. But I ended up meeting my best friend doing the show. And I remember opening night, we were waiting to start that overture, and the girls are sitting at the loom getting ready for the curtain to come up. And Sally Murphy reached over and grabbed my hand. And in that moment, I thought, okay, something really special is about to happen. And I feel like that was the beginning of my life, in a way, my Broadway life in a way, even though Secret Garden was, Carousel felt like the true beginning. I ended up winning a Tony for Carousel, which I was, stunned. And I didn't know like the Tony Awards schedule or like anything, like, award season, any of that stuff. I was a newbie, and I remember, growing up in Fresno, just one night you'd turn on, TV and the Tonys were on, but I didn't know like the whole award season schedule. Or I didn't really know that much about the Outer Critics Circle Awards or the Drama Desk Awards. So as all this was happening, I was in catch-up mode, just saying, what is that? It was all very, very new to me. I really didn't know a lot about what was going on. So when the Tony Awards happened and I won, I was like I just floated right out of my body. And all I remember is turning around and realizing I had to make a speech in front of all these people who, my goodness, some of the people who were in that audience. And I was so nervous. I was like, what am I going to say? And I'm such a fan of everybody I'm looking at. And my eyes rested on Carol Channing, who was sitting really close in the front. And she just had this big smile on her face and just like that. And I felt comforted by that. And so, I was able to make mainly the speech to Carol Channing. That was a moment for me and Carol Channing. I don't know if she knew it, but yeah, Carousel. Just one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had in my life. And then we go to Masterclass, written by the incredible Terrence McNally. Oh God, I'm not prepared. I feel like this thing is gonna make me cry. Terrence McNally become the beginning of a beautiful friendship and collaboration. He became a mentor of mine. He came to see me in Carousel and then asked me to audition for Masterclass. And I went to Shirley Verrett, who I was doing Carousel with, and said, I have to sing this aria from Macbeth. Can I say, yeah, we're just in an office space. I could say Macbeth here and not, we're not in a theater. And she said, ooh, honey, you better have a high C. In fact, you better have two, because Shirley had sung this role at the Met. So Shirley coached me on this role. And I auditioned, and I did a callback, and Zoe Caldwell was at the callback, and I was scared to death of her. And then they cast me, and Terrence McNally took me out to lunch at the Lincoln Square Diner. I think that's what it was called, right across the street from Lincoln Center, which does not exist anymore. And we had grilled cheese sandwiches, and he talked to me about the play and asked me if I knew anything about Zoe Caldwell. And in my ignorance, I said, no, I know she's a famous actress, but I've never seen her work. And he said, I think you're going to really get along with her. And boy, was he right. She became, one of the biggest mentors in my life. And she was brutally honest. She did everything big. She loved big. When she was angry, it was big. She was a brilliant actress. Being on stage with her, as I've said before in other interviews, like being on stage with this just hurricane force, and you have to keep up with it. And I learned so much about the craft, both on stage and off stage, from watching this woman and being on stage with this woman. And she and Terrence both just became such mentors, and they were the people I would go to for questions about my career as my career continued after that. Zoe became like a maternal figure to me. I named my daughter after Zoe Caldwell. I don't think I'd be the performer that I am today if I hadn't done this show, and if I hadn't met these people. They have a lot to do with who I am as an artist. Okay, we're turning the page. Ragtime. Okay, So this would be my second collaboration with Terrence McNally, Ragtime, Steve Flaherty and Lynn Ahrens, Graciela Danielle as the choreographer. It's when I first met and got to work with Stokes. And I think this is my second time working on a show from the very beginning. And I really learned a lot about how a show is, created. With a play, it was a little bit of a different thing because Masterclass was already whole and done. There was not a lot of work that Terrence had to do on Masterclass when we started. But Ragtime, was a beast to put together and to create and to watch that creative process from the beginning throughout the workshops that I was a part of. And then the production in Toronto and then finally coming to Broadway was amazing. That cast in Toronto was very close. And, I think about the fact that the little boy in Toronto was Paul Dano. And the little girl was Leah Michelle. And then when we came to, I think still in Toronto or maybe on Broadway. No, yeah, Brandon Uranowitz was another one of the little boys. And to think that they are not children anymore, that means one of us has gotten older, and I guess it's me. But to also watch their careers and see what's happened with all of them has been amazing. Frank Galati, the incredible director on that, the cast, beautiful Marin Mazey. It's the first time I worked with her. And we went through some times, that cast, and that show. But playing the role of Sarah, getting to sing Wheels of a Dream every night. The first time I sang Wheels of a Dream, or the first time I heard Wheels of a Dream, it was in the first workshop. And none of us, only Stokes knew the score. And we were reading through the musical for the first time. And Lynn and Steve were singing most of the songs because most of the rest of us didn't know it. But Stokes knew Wheels of a Dream. So when we got to that part, Stokes sang it. And when he got to the end, guys, I didn't even sing it, I didn't know. And the wheels of a dream, and he sang that last note, and everybody was just sitting at the table, and then everybody just went, ah! We all just started screaming and crying. And that was, again, you have moments, in rehearsal or, through a run that, are core memories. And that's a core memory for me. I just remember looking at his mouth as he was singing that last note. And I remember then looking up at his face and seeing the tears start to form in his eyes and the tears that were forming in my eyes and everybody around us. And I was just like, this is going to be something special. And it was. I love that 500 years later, I still get to sing that duet with Stokes from time to time. We're still doing it in the original key. Maybe not much longer, but for now we are, so that's good. Marie Christine. So, remember when I said that when I was doing Carousel, my second audition, my first audition, they asked Michael John LaCusa and Graciela Danielle to come in and have me sing for them. And that's the first time I'd ever met them. When it turned out that I was not right for Hello Again, Michael John said to me, I'm going to write a musical for you someday. He did, Marie Christine. It was based on Medea, but he had it set in New Orleans and made her a Creole woman. It was the most incredible experience with Graciela Danielle directing it and being back at Lincoln Center. And it was the first time that I was, truly the lead in a show. I think because I had watched Zoe Caldwell and how she led our cast, and how disciplined she was and how hard she worked. I think by the time I got to Marie Christine, I was ready. And I think I was ready in big part due to Zoe Caldwell. And not only that, it's Medea, the musical version of Medea, and Zoe Caldwell, one of her Tonys is for Medea. She was one of the greatest Medeas that ever lived. And Zoe Caldwell was certainly there for me while I was doing Marie Christine. When she didn't think I was doing it well, she told me. But when I got it right and when she got me to trust myself and trust who Medea Marie Christine is, and not try and worry about whether the audience likes you or not, but tell her story. That's the most important thing. Once I began to trust that, she was the first person to champion me and be there for me. But it was an incredible score. Michael John is his voice is so singular. And it was very collaborative. And Graziella Danielle, we did workshops of it for a couple of years before we finally got it to Lincoln Center. And when you do workshops with Graziella Danielle, you're so fulfilled every day when you walk out of there. I always like, is this bad to say? I always felt like I was at a spa when I would come out from having worked with Graziella Danielle or a retreat or something, because I'd feel like I'd had my catharsis for the day. I'd moved a lot for the day. My skin was always glowing, mostly because I was sweaty, but I just felt alive, and I felt tone. I think that's because Graziella is Earth Mama, and she encourages to get to the deep down to the bottom of your soul. And so it was very, very fulfilling, and to do it at Lincoln Center was a blessing, again, with incredible cast. Anthony Crivello and Mary Testa. Oh, I had such a good time. And again, my best friend, Livette George, was in this as well, too. So that was a joy being on stage with her again. And just, of course, I was talking to her every day, but, to be in a show together again. Henry IV, Jack O'Brien, directing Henry IV. Is the first time I'd ever done Shakespeare with a cast. I mean, it's like, was it the thing they used to do, the games that they would host on the networks, or the network stars? It sort of felt like there was so many incredible, big sort of theater stars in that show. Kevin Kline, Michael Hayden, Dana Ivey, Ethan Hawke. He played Lord Percy, and I was Lady Percy. It was just an incredible cast of thousands, again at Lincoln Center. So just Lincoln Center by that point was home for me, most definitely. And it was just a joy doing this show every night. And also for me, I had no idea what I was doing with Shakespeare. So I had all these incredible people to watch and to ask questions and to learn from. And so with this one, it was just about soaking up the brilliance of all these incredible Shakespearean actors and hoping some of it rubbed off on me. And I wasn't great as Lady Percy. In fact, we got Andre Bishop came backstage and said, we don't read reviews, we got great reviews, and even from one particular critic. And after the show closed, I read that review. The critic said everybody was brilliant except for Audra McDonald. So there you go. Don't read reviews. But I waited till after the show was closed, so that made me laugh. Anyway, but I learned a lot, and I loved it. And the great thing about this show is once you died in this show, because everybody dies in this show, once you died, we would just party until curtain call. Sometimes we were a little tipsy at curtain call, but shh. Don't tell. Okay, A Raisin in the Sun. First time working with Kenny Leon. My first time working with one of my heroes, Phylicia Rashad, who I'd known, finally got to know a little bit, but finally got a chance to work with her. Sanaa Lathan, in this incredible, oh my gosh, is there a play more iconic and beautiful and groundbreaking than Raisin in the Sun? And for us, it was just, I felt like a better actor every night because I was out there, especially with Phylicia. Phylicia, in the same way that Zoe Caldwell did to me, Phylicia made you raise yourself up to your A game. You had to. I've worked with such incredible actors and directors and people who are all about the work. They're not about fame. Phylicia Rashad, she could be about fame. I mean, Lord knows she's like the world's famous mom, right? For all of us. About the work. Sanaa Lathan, a joy and about the work. And working with Kenny Leon, who pushes you like no director I've ever known. And he pushes you hard, but he pushes you because he believes in you and he knows that you can do it. And so on days that I thought, I can't play this role, it's too iconic and I can't get there emotionally, he was like, yeah, you can, we're gonna do it again from the top. And the other thing about this is when we first started rehearsing, I was supposed to Ruth makes eggs at the beginning, and so we started. Kenny said, "All right, let's just play. Let's go." And so I got up there and I started to pretend to make eggs, and it was very obvious that I'm not a cook. Felicia was watching on the side. She went, "Wait, hold it. Audra, girl, come here. Let me show you how to make eggs." She stopped. And she gave me a little lesson about how she makes eggs. And that's like one of the only things I'm good at now, because Felicia Rashad taught me. And that's why Ruth Younger cooked such good eggs at the beginning of the show, Raisin in the Sun. Okay. 110 in the Shade. Well, this show changed my life. To work with Lonnie Price, who is a dear friend of mine. And he's the one who said, "You should play this role." And I thought, what? 110 in the Shade isn't about some, old maid, white lady from Texas. It's like, yep, but you're going to play her and you can do this. And it's the most beautiful, beautiful show about finding love and true love for yourself, and belief in yourself. As it turns out, I guess I'm stumbling with this one because this show was also the show that my father was killed in a plane crash during the show. So 5 days before we opened, so we had to stop for a second so I could go home to for the funeral. And so that was a tricky time, especially because Lizzie and her father have such a beautiful relationship in the show. So what was actually kind of gorgeous for me for this show is when I came back and did the show for the rest of the run, I was able to sort of, theater can heal, let's say, because I was able to sort of work through all my love for my father on stage every night in this show. And John Cullum was so lovely and so open. And so he kind of received all of that, and it was beautiful. And working with Steve Kazee and Bobby Steggert, and it was a beautiful, beautiful cast. And then, of course, I ended up meeting this person in the cast, Mr. Will Swenson, I think his name is, and he had kids and I had kids, and our kids started playing together and became friends. And then after the show closed and lifed, started dating. And here we are 18 years later with our 3 kids plus the one that we had. And so 110 in the Shade, a show that I thought was going to make my family smaller because of losing my dad, ended up growing my family. So, okay. Porgy and Bess with some man. He looks familiar, but I don't know. I don't think I did the show. Maybe I did. Who is that? Oh, Norm Lewis. Yes. I have to mess with Norm Lewis every chance I get because that's just who we are. Fun fact, I met Norm Lewis on the day that I auditioned for The Secret Garden at 890 Broadway. Small world. Gershwin's Porgy and Bess, doing this at ART with Diane Paulus and this is a show that I'd always wanted to do. I'd always wanted to play this role. And it was one of the few musicals, operas, whatever you want to call it, that when I was at Juilliard, I would listen to all the time. Because it made me feel like, well, I don't want to sing opera, but if I did have to sing opera, this is what I would sing. And so when I got the offer to be a part of this production and knowing that it was going to be Norm Lewis, I jumped at it because he's like my brother. And to have the big orchestra and to have just the incredible cast. We have Josh Henry was in that cast. Nick Daniels was in that cast. David Allen Greer, Philip Boykin. And to get the opportunity to do it in Cambridge, to really sort of figure out who we were in this show, this iconic show, before we brought it to Broadway, was a blessing. One of the most fulfilling things I've ever done. And to sing that score every night with these people, those voices, those golden throats, was incredible. Made me melt. I mean, you have Norm Lewis sing Bess, You Is My Woman Now to you and see how you do. So Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill. Well, I thought Lonnie Price, my dear, dear friend, Lonnie Price, was out of his freaking mind when he said you should play Billie Holiday. I was like, what are you smoking? I can't play Billie Holiday. I can't sing like her. And he said, I think you'd be right. I think you'd be right for this, Audge. He calls me Audge. He's like, I think you'd be right for it. So I said, all right. So we did one workshop and then we did another. And because I didn't want anybody to know that I was working on this in case I didn't get it right, they were very secretive workshops. We'd pick places that were way out of the way or like way, way, way up high in the building, wherever we were, so that no one could like put their ear and say, what's Audra McDonald working on? And why does she sound like, I don't know, a mouse that's been stepped on? I don't know. As I was trying to figure out her voice. But with each consecutive workshop, we got closer and closer, and I started to get closer and closer to her, especially when Lonnie and I had the realization that her sound, her speaking voice, was so much like my grandmother's. And once I figured out that Billie spoke like Nana, I was able to find her. And I was so glad to be a part of this show because I had, of course, I was a big fan of Billie Holiday's, but I think I had passed judgment on her before I did this, sort of thinking, oh yeah, she was a drug addict, but she was really incredible, sad, and then to get to know her life and to get to understand what she went through and what she survived and how she thrived when she shouldn't have been able to thrive as much as she did, given the shit that she went through, made me come to love her and want to champion her and make sure that people really understood who this woman was, what she went through, and how brilliant she was. So we did a lot of research. We talked to anybody we could who was still alive that knew her and spent time with her, and that was quite a few people. And as I did the show, people would come to the show and say, oh, I knew her, she this. And so every time someone would come to the show who knew her or had some experience with her, it was like they were giving me a little gift, and I could bring that with me, whether I used it on stage in some way or not, I don't know. And this is also the show where a cell phone went off and in the quietest moment in the show. And so I spun around in a circle as Billie saying, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? So yeah, Lady Day. Thank you, Lonnie, for pushing me to do this. And thank you, Billie. Shuffle Along, or the making of the musical sensation of 1921 and all that followed. George Wolfe, the great George Wolfe. I love so much being a part of this show with, again, cast of thousands: Adrienne Warren, Amber Iman, Billy Porter, Brian Stokes Mitchell, Josh Henry. I mean, Brandon Victor Dixon. The list just goes on and on. And being choreographed by Savion Glover, which was so amazing. Every day in rehearsal, we'd start out with like a tap warm up and then basically a whole class. I was driving my family crazy. I was tap dancing so much around the house. It was driving them nuts. They did not like me very much during this time. But to be a part of telling this history, and this show that sort of changed the theater world and was huge in 1921. And the fact that there was, I didn't know this history. A lot of people don't know this history. Meant everything. And my first time working with George, even though I'd known him for years and years and years, it was our first time working together on a show. It was a brilliant time. And little did I know that 110 in the shade meant that in Shuffle Along, I'd end up getting pregnant. And Sally, when she was in my belly and I was trying to tap dance in the show, the cast called her Baby Shuff. And so when they see her now, they're like, oh, Baby Shuffle, how you doing? They still call her that. She's like, why does everybody call me that? You were Baby Shuffle. So it was an incredible show to be a part of and getting that history out there. And I hope one day we'll be able to. This deserved a cast recording. I hope we get it someday. Frankie and Johnny in the Claire de Lune, working again with Terrence McNally, and the great, just the greatest guy, the greatest actor, Michael Shannon, on this piece that was, again, I pick pieces that scare me, and this one scared me to death just because of all the incredible women who have played this role. Kathy Bates, Edie Falco. It's a two-hander. I mean, I had done Lady Day already, but this is the first time I'd done a two-hander, and because of how literally and figuratively naked these two souls get in this show. And so Terrence said, I want you to do it. And I think I want Michael Shannon to do it. I want the two of you to do this show. And Aaron Arbus was our incredible director. And Terrence was very ill at this time. And so we wanted to make sure we did this right for Terrence. And I've never felt safer. And you would think that's kind of strange to say in a show where the show starts out where you're completely naked having sex on stage with someone. And then by the end of the show, you're in your bathrobes brushing your teeth. And the most vulnerable moment isn't the beginning of the show, it's the end of the show. That's when they're the most naked, when they're in their robes brushing their teeth at the end. And I've never felt safer with Michael and with Aaron at the helm, and everybody in that theater protecting us, making sure that, if anybody was taking pictures, they grabbed phones immediately and all that stuff so that we could explore these two lonely, lost souls, who find each other in New York City. And one says, yes, everything I want is in this room, and the other is scared to death. So it's a beautiful play. And I was scared to do it, but so, so grateful. And again, working with someone like Michael Shannon on stage every night, it made me fight to be a better actor because he was so brilliant. So that's Frankie and Johnny. Ohio State Murders. Adrienne Kennedy. This woman was in her 90s before she got her Broadway debut, even though she'd been writing plays for 70 years. And the story it's sort of semi-autobiographical based on her life when she went to Ohio State in the 40s, 3 years after it had finally been integrated, the dorms had been integrated, and what happened to her in some parts. So to be a part of this, opening the James Earl Jones Theater with Kenny Leon at the helm. Again, this is, even though there's people that kind of come in and out, she's on stage by herself for quite a bit. This show scared me to death. Adrienne Kennedy's poetry and language is beautiful, but it's not necessarily linear. At times it can be, even though she's trying to tell a story, but at times it's not. And so I just was scared to death that I was never, ever, ever, ever going to be able to memorize it and find her. But again, because it was semi-autobiographical, I was able to speak to Adrienne quite a bit, hear the stories from her, and get a sense of who she was and what it is and what she sounds like. And so that helped me a lot in finding her. And Kenny was smart enough to have her voice playing as people come into the theater, interviews of her, and I thought was really smart. So that by the time I come on stage, you're familiar with her sound, even though you may not even know that that's what you've been listening to. It's a beautiful, brutal play. And another one that challenged me. And another great cast. And then opening the James Earl Jones Theater to be the first play in there was just an honor. So, and I look like my grandmother in this picture. Okay. Gypsy. Well, thank you, Gavin. Thank you, Gavin. My life in the theater, it's so interesting to see, when you do theater for a living, you kind of see your whole life moments, big moments in your life based on what show you were in or something. Or, I'm seeing when I got pregnant with Sally. I'm seeing when I met Will. I'm seeing when my dad died. And so Gavin Creel telling me that I think you should play this part 8 years ago. First day of rehearsal of Gypsy was the day that Gavin died. And I'm just so grateful. I'm grateful that he put this idea in my head. Getting to work with George Wolfe again, being challenged in a way that I've never been challenged before, to play a role that is, I can't think of a role more iconic. And then being given the freedom and permission by the estates to explore her in the way that is right for us, and that is unapologetically a Black woman in this era at the 1920s and 30s. Just a gift. And to be with these people on stage every night, Danny Burstein and Joy Woods and Jordan Tyson, the entire cast, to reopen the Majestic Theater and to explore everything that Mama Rose is. And I've learned so much about who she is in a way. Again, I think in the way I judged Billie Holiday, I think I judged Rose too before playing her. And I don't anymore. I get why she did what she did. She did what she had to do. I see that it was out of love and protection and trauma, generational trauma and mama trauma, abandonment issues. So great when you play a character, you get to learn so much about the human psyche, about yourself, about others. Said it before, I'll say it again, theater heals. If I don't ever do another show again, I am so blessed and so fulfilled at having had the opportunity to play Rose. And then as I look back at all of these, I'm the luckiest chick I know. All right, that's my life in the theater. I need a drink.